The executioner didn't want my head. He wanted the small, shivering boy kneeling in the frozen mud beside me. "Kill the runt," the pack leader spat. "He's a waste of food." I threw my body over my son as the heavy iron blade whistled down. I braced for the end. But the blow never landed. Instead, a hand of solid granite caught the axe mid-swing, and a voice that shook the mountains growled, "Touch my heir, and I will burn this forest to ash." Chapter 1. Hunger wasn't a sensation anymore. It was a living thing, a rat gnawing on her spine, looking for marrow. Elara stared at the wire loop in the snow. Empty. The wind cut through the skeletal trees of the borderlands, carrying the bite of incoming snow and the heavy, metallic taste of failure. She dropped to her knees in the frozen mud. Her fingers, blue, stiff, useless, brushed the tripwire. No rabbit, no squirrel, just the hollow silence of a dead winter. Leo wouldn't eat today. The thought didn't break her heart. It stopped it. She forced herself up. Tears were a luxury she couldn't afford. They would only freeze on her cheeks. Her boots were worn through, letting the ice kiss her soles with every step. She had to check the northern trap, the last hope. Then the vibration started. A low mechanical thrum, not the wind. Fear flooded her mouth, tasting of old pennies. She knew that frequency. A Royal Patrol drone. Instinct moved her before her brain could catch up. She threw herself flat against the rot of the forest floor, the freezing mud soaking instantly through her thin coat. She reached back, grabbing the small, shivering lump tucked into the hollow of the ancient oak. Shh. She pressed her lips to the wool of his hat. "Be a stone, Leo. Be a shadow." Leo nodded against her chest. He was too small for 5, too quiet. Runt. The word scarred her memory, a brand from a life she'd escaped. To the world, he was a mistake. To her, he was the only reason she was still breathing. The hum grew to a roar. A shadow, black and sleek, blotted out the gray sky. It wasn't scanning. It was hunting. Her heart hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs. They were too close to the neutral zone. If they were caught here, there would be no fines. No jail time. Just a flash of light and a pile of ash. The drone paused, hovered. A red laser grid swept the snow inches from her boot. Panic clawed at her throat. She pressed Leo's face into the dirt, shielding his small body with her own. If that red eye caught his face, if it scanned the blue and gold heterochromia, they would know. They would know who his father was, and they would execute him on the spot. The machine whirred, waiting, calculating. She didn't know what terrified her more, the cold seeping into Leo's hollow bones, or the monster on the throne miles away who sent these metal vultures. Suddenly, the pitch changed. The drone banked left, zoomed west. She exhaled, a ragged cloud of steam, but the relief was a lie. The drone was just the scout. The wolves would be close behind. She grabbed Leo, hoisting him onto her hip. He felt terrifyingly light, like a bird made of hollow reeds. "Hold on tight." The wind shifted. Wet dog. Pine. Sweat. Not a patrol. A hunting party. And the scent told her the one thing she didn't want to know. They weren't searching. They had found a scent trail. Air rasped in her throat like swallowed glass. Branches whipped her face. Thorns tore at her denim. She didn't slow down. She couldn't. Leo clung to her neck, his face buried in her scarf. Silence. He learned before he could walk that crying summoned the monsters. Elara veered left. She knew these woods better than the royal guards. She knew where the ground softened into treacherous bogs, where the ravines dropped into jagged darkness. But the heavy thud of paws hitting the earth grew louder. Gaining. She needed a distraction. She needed a miracle. Ahead, a pile of white stones marked the perimeter. The decoy. Footsteps grew thunderous behind her. Snarls ripped through the freezing air. She sprinted past the stones and kicked the tripwire hidden in the snow. Snap. A massive pine log swung down from the canopy, smashing into the underbrush with the force of a train wreck. The pursuit faltered. Wolves yelped, confused by the chaos. Her chance. She scrambled up a rocky ridge. Boots. slipping on the black ice. She clawed at the frozen dirt, fingernails breaking, blood welling. Just a few more feet. The neutral zone line sat just over the ridge. If she crossed it, maybe, just maybe, instinct would stop them. A shadow eclipsed the sun. A massive weight slammed into her back. The air left her lungs in a violent whoosh. The world spun into a blur of gray sky and white snow. She curled around Leo, taking the brutal impacts as they tumbled down the rocky slope. They slammed into the base of a pine with a bone-jarring thud. Elara gasped, black spots dancing in her vision. Pain radiated from her shoulder like a hot poker. A low growl vibrated through the ground, resonating in her own chest. Standing over her was a wolf, a royal guard, midnight black fur, muscles coiling like steel cables, teeth bared in a snarl that promised nothing but an end. Her hand flew to her boot. She ripped out the rusted iron knife, dull, pathetic against a shifter. But it was all she had. Back off. Her voice was a jagged shard of glass. The wolf didn't flinch. He eyed the knife, then her, with cold, predatory amusement. Bones cracked. The wet, sickening sound of rearranging anatomy filled the clearing. Fur retracted into skin. A man stood there now, naked, looming. He smirked. "Put the toothpick away, girl. Touch my son, and I'll bleed you." The guard laughed, a cruel, dry sound like dead leaves skittering. "The king doesn't want the boy. He wants the trespasser." Her blood turned to ice. Kaelen. This wasn't random. This wasn't a patrol. They were hunting her. She tightened her grip on the knife until her knuckles turned white. She would not go back. She would not let him see her like this. Broken, starved, a shadow of the woman he destroyed. "I'd rather die." The guard stepped forward. Too fast. Blur fast. He kicked the knife from her hand before she could slash. It spun away, lost in the snow. He grabbed her by the throat, lifting her feet off the ground. Leo screamed, "Mommy!" The sound tore her heart in half. "Tie her up," the guard ordered the others emerging from the tree line. "The Alpha King is hungry for judgment."
Kaelen hated the smell of blood. It smelled like duty. He stood in the center of the execution clearing, a statue carved from rage and muscle. The sky was the color of a fresh bruise. Snow fell in lazy, fat flakes, melting the second they touched his heated skin. He didn't wear a coat. The cold couldn't touch him. He was the Alpha. He was the fire. Next. His voice was flat, bored. Beside him, Soraya tapped her tablet. Her lips were painted a sharp, violent red that matched the snow at his feet. "Just a rogue trespasser, my king. Found near the northern ridge. Theft, poaching, resisting arrest." Kaelen rubbed his temples. Another desperate stray. The crown felt like lead today, pressing down, crushing the man beneath the title. Get it over with. Two guards dragged a figure into the clearing, throwing her into the mud at his feet. Small, emaciated. Her clothes were rags, layers of mismatched wool and stolen flannel. She smelled of dirt, sickness, and the sour tang of fear. Kaelen looked away. He didn't want to see the eyes. He'd seen enough pleading to haunt 10 lifetimes. "State your name," Soraya demanded. The woman didn't speak, just shivered violently. "Speak!" A guard barked, kicking dirt into her face. The woman lifted her head. Time stopped. The wind shifted. A scent hit Kaelen, cutting through the blood, through the pine, through the years. Vanilla, wood smoke, and something sweeter. Like a memory he tried to drown in whiskey and war. Kaelen froze. His heart, that dead, frozen stone in his chest, slammed against his ribs. Thump, thump, it was impossible. She was gone, dead, or run away with a lover. That's what the report said. 5 years of silence. Slowly, with the terrifying inevitability of a landslide, Kaelen looked down. The woman pushed matted hair out of her face. Her eyes met his. Green, moss green, Defiant, broken, Elara. The world tilted on its axis. The noise of the clearing, the guards, the wind, the distant drones vanished. There was only her. She looked like a ghost. Hollow cheeks, cracked lips, a bruise blooming purple on her jaw. Anger, hot and white, exploded in his chest. She left him. She shattered him. And now she was here. A criminal. A rogue. You. The word was a growl that shook the trees. The air thickened. Guards stepped back, tails tucked. The alpha was agitated. The predator was awake. Elara didn't flinch. She glared at him with hatred so pure it burned his skin. Go ahead, she rasped. Do it. Kill me. It's what you always wanted. Her voice, the same, but harder, rougher, like silk dragged over gravel. Pain sliced through him. Why? Why did she leave? He stepped forward, hands clenching into fists to stop them from reaching for her. He wanted to shake her, hold her, destroy the world that made her look so thin. Why are you here? His alpha voice slipped out, vibrating the ground, forcing the wolves around him to their knees. Answer me. Submission was instant for everyone and was clearing, except for her. Elara stood up. She wobbled, legs trembling, but she stood, immune to his power, just like before, the only wolf who ever defied him. I was hungry. The admission hit him like a physical blow. The queen, his mate, starving? Leave her alone. A small voice, high, terrified. Kaelen blinked. He looked past Elara. A guard held a bundle of rags. The bundle was kicking, fighting. Let go of my mommy. The guard struggled. The hood fell back. Kaelen stopped breathing. A boy, small, skinny, wild hair. But it wasn't the hair. It was the eyes. One blue, one gold. Kaelen's gold. The realization crashed into him like an avalanche, burying him. Son. The word echoed in his soul, shattering the ice around his heart. Elara had stolen his son. The shock turned into something darker. Possessiveness. Fury. A primal need that blackened his vision. Mine, Kaelen growled. Low, dangerous, absolute. He looked at Elara. The lingering love evaporated. Now, there was only the king and the thief. Seize them. His voice was deathly quiet. Bring them to the lodge. No one touches what belongs to me. Breath trapped in his lungs. Kaelen couldn't blink. He couldn't look away. The boy shivered in the guard's iron grip, small and terrified. But the eyes. One blue, freezing and deep like winter ice. One gold, burning like a molten sun. It was a mirror that shattered 5 years of silence. The rage in Kaelen's chest curdled into something sharper. Confusion, agony. How? How could she hide a prince? It's a trick. Soraya stepped forward, her heels clicking on the frozen ground like pistol shots. She looked at the boy with a curled lip, as if he were something she'd scraped off her shoe. Look at it, my king. She gestured with a manicured hand. It's a runt. Malformed. Weak. Obviously a mongrel she picked up in the gutter to buy sympathy. Runt. The word hung in the cold air. Poison. Elara lunged. No weapon, but she bared her teeth like a feral cat. Don't you talk about him. He is worth 10 of you. The guard tightened his grip. Leo whimpered. That sound, that small, broken noise, snapped the leash on Kaelen's control. Enough. He didn't shout. He didn't have to. He used the alpha voice. It rolled out of his chest like a physical shockwave, bending the air itself. Thud, thud, thud. Every guard dropped to the snow, crushed by the weight of the command. Even Soraya fell, clutching her throat, eyes bulging as the pressure brought her to her knees. But Elara. She was still standing. Trembling, yes. Knees shaking violently, yes. But she didn't bow. She didn't break. She glared at him, chin lifted in a challenge that defied biology. The only wolf in existence who could ignore an alpha king. Kaelen remembered exactly why he had loved her, and why he hated her. She was the only thing in his kingdom he couldn't control. "Give him to me." His voice was raw gravel. The guard, face pressed into the snow, released the boy. Leo scrambled away, burying his face in Elara's muddy legs. "We're leaving." Kaelen turned his back on the execution block, the decision made. "Get them in the transport, now." "But the protocol," Soraya gasped, struggling to find her footing. Kaelen spun around, eyes flashing pure, liquid gold. "Protocol is dead. Speak again, Soraya, and I rip out your tongue."
The vehicle wasn't a car. It was a tank wrapped in velvet. Elara perched on the edge of the leather seat. It was too soft. It felt like a trap. The air inside was suffocatingly warm, smelling of cedar, expensive cologne, and the terrifying scent of the man across from her. Bile coated her throat. She pulled Leo onto her lap. He was vibrating. The sudden blast of the heater was a shock to his system after hours in the freezing mud. Across from them, Kaelen watched, silent. His gaze was heavy, a physical weight tracing the dirt on Leo's face, lingering on the patches in her coat. She hated him, hated how clean he was, hated the power radiating off him like heat from a furnace. Kaelen moved. Elara flinched, arms tightening around Leo's ribs. He didn't attack. He reached into a side compartment, pulling out a silver wrapper, a protein bar, high-grade military rations. He held it out. "He needs to eat." Voice low, controlled, dangerous. Elara stared at the food. Her stomach cramped. Violently. She hadn't eaten in 2 days, saving the last crust of bread for the boy. But she knew how this worked. Kings didn't give gifts. They gave bribes. Or poison. "Don't want it." Kaelen's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping in his cheek. "Don't be stupid, Elara. The boy is starving. Look at him. Skin and bones. He's alive. No thanks to you." "To me," Kaelen laughed, a dark, bitter sound that filled the cabin. "You ran away. You stole him. You chose to raise a prince in the mud. I chose to keep him safe from the people who wanted him dead. I would never hurt him. You weren't the one I was running from." The words burst out before she could bite them back. Silence filled the car. Thick, heavy, suffocating. Kaelen narrowed his eyes, the gold dimming to a suspicious amber. "What does that mean?" The car lurched. Violently, the world exploded. Gravity inverted. Metal screamed as the armored transport was thrown into the air like a toy. Glass shattered, raining down like diamonds. Elara didn't think. She curled around Leo, becoming a human shield as the world turned upside down. They slammed into the ground with bone-breaking force. Darkness swallowed her whole.
Pain. It rang in his ears like a church bell, drowning out the world. Kaelen shook his head, trying to clear the static. Warmth trickled into his eye. Blood. He was upside down. The transport lay on its side, the roof caved in like crushed foil. "Elara." Silence. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced his chest harder than any shrapnel. "Leo?" A small cough, then a groan. Kaelen unbuckled his harness, dropping to the ceiling of the car. He kicked the door, jammed. With a roar of frustration, he kicked again. Metal groaned in protest. He channeled the wolf, letting the power flood his muscles. Crack! The reinforced door flew off its hinges, disappearing into the storm outside. Wind howled into the cabin, bringing snow and ice. He crawled back to the passenger seats. Elara was unconscious. A cut on her forehead bled sluggishly, but her chest rose and fell. She was curled tight around the boy, a protective shell even in sleep. "Wake up!" Kaelen grabbed her shoulder, shaking her hard. Her eyes fluttered open. Green met gold. For a second, she looked soft, vulnerable. Then memory returned. She scrambled back, checking Leo's pulse instantly. "He's okay," she whispered, voice trembling. "He's okay. We have to move." Kaelen scanned the front. The driver's seat was empty. The door was ripped open. Blood stained the snow outside. Fresh. We were attacked. Someone planted a mine. Elara looked at the open door, eyes widening. "Soraya." Kaelen didn't argue. He grabbed a survival pack from under the seat. "Can he walk?" Elara looked at Leo. The boy was pale, eyes rolling back in his head. The shock was too much for his small body. "No." Her voice broke. "Give him to me." "No." "Elara." Kaelen snapped, the command slicing through her panic. "Look at the snow. Whiteout conditions. I can navigate. You want him to live, or do you want to be stubborn?" She hesitated. Her hands shook as she passed the boy to him. Kaelen took his son. Leo was so light, it made Kaelen sick to his stomach. He could feel every rib through the thin shirt. The boy was fragile. A gust of wind could blow him away. My blood, reduced to this. He tucked the boy inside his heavy coat, zipping it up so only Leo's face poked out. The boy instinctively snuggled against the warmth of his chest. Something inside Kaelen shifted. A tectonic plate moving in his soul. A fierce, terrifying need to destroy anything that threatened this small creature. "Stay close. You lag behind, you die." They stepped out of the wreckage and into the white hell. Wind screamed, blinding them instantly. Visibility was zero. But Kaelen didn't need eyes. He had a nose. He smelled the lodge, uphill, maybe a mile. But he smelled something else, too. Wolves. Rogues. Run.
The heavy timber door slammed with a finality that rattled her bones. The screaming wind vanished. Silence. Heavy, thick, unnerving. Elara leaned against the wood, chest heaving like a bellows. Her lungs burned from the razor-sharp cold. Beside her, Kaelen threw the deadbolt. Click, click, click. 3 locks. "We're safe." Voice low. Certain. Safety was a lie. Safety was just a pause between attacks. She pushed off the door, scanning the room. The Blackwood hunting lodge wasn't a cabin. It was a palace made of logs, crystal chandeliers dripping with light, a fireplace big enough to roast a deer whole, couches made of soft, buttery leather that cost more than her life. It smelled like cedar and money. Gooseflesh rippled down her arms. "Put him down," Elara whispered. Kaelen hesitated. He looked at the bundle against his chest with a strange, fierce possessiveness, but he unzipped the coat. Leo slept. His face was pale, lips slightly blue. "He needs heat." Kaelen's voice was rough. "I'll start the fire." Elara took her son, a dead weight in her arms, and laid him on the velvet cushions. It looked wrong. His dirty, ragged clothes against the pristine fabric. While Kaelen knelt by the hearth, Elara moved to the windows. She didn't look at the view. She looked for threats, checked latches, checked sightlines. Then weapons. A heavy iron poker by the hearth. Good. A steak knife on a silver tray. Better. She slipped the knife into her boot. "What are you doing?" Elara froze. Kaelen watched her. The fire roared to life, casting dancing shadows on his face. He looked dangerous in the flickering light. Too big. Too close. "Securing the perimeter." Kaelen frowned. "Glass is bulletproof. Walls are reinforced steel hidden by timber. No one gets in unless I let them in. Soraya got a bomb under your car. Your walls don't impress me." His jaw tightened. A muscle ticked in his cheek like a trapped insect. "I won't let them touch him, Elara." "You already did." The words hung in the air. Sharp. Cruel. True. Kaelen looked away. For the first time, the Alpha King looked tired. "Food in the pantry," he said, voice rough. "Canned goods, water, checking the generator." He turned to leave. stopped. You don't have to steal the knife, Elara. Would have given it to you. He walked out. Elara stood there, hand trembling against the cold handle of the blade hidden in her boot. She didn't trust him. Couldn't. But as the warmth filled the room, the terrifying truth hit her. She wanted to believe him.
Steam rose from the porcelain tub, smelling of lavender and chamomile. A scent for a child. A scent for peace. Kaelen knelt on the cold tile floor. He felt out of place. He was a warrior. A king. His hands were made for breaking bones, not testing water temperature. Leo sat in the bubbles, awake but quiet. Is it too hot? Kaelen asked. His voice felt too loud in the small room. Leo shook his head. No, sir. Sir. A knife in Kaelen's gut. Not Dad. Not Papa. Sir. You can call me Kaelen. Leo looked at him with those mismatched eyes. Didn't answer. He grabbed the washcloth and started scrubbing his own arm. Kaelen watched the grime of the rogue land swirl down the drain. Then, Kaelen saw it. He stopped breathing. On the boy's back, right between his small shoulder blades, a scar, not a scratch, a jagged, ugly line of raised flesh. A bite mark. Leo. Kaelen choked on the name. What is this? He reached out, fingers hovering over the mark. Afraid to touch, afraid he would break the boy. Leo twisted to look. Oh, that's from the bad wolf. Kaelen's blood turned to ice. What bad wolf? The one who wanted my shoes, Leo said simply. Mommy fought him. She bit his ear off, but he got me first. Kaelen closed his eyes. The image seared his mind. Elara, fighting a full-grown wolf, alone, to save this boy over a pair of shoes. For 5 years he told himself she was selfish, living in luxury, laughing at him. He was a fool. She hadn't run to hurt him. She had run to survive. Does it hurt? Broken whisper. Only when it rains, Leo said, tilting his head. Are you going to hurt Mommy? The question hit Kaelen harder than any punch to the jaw. No. The word rumbled deep in his chest. No, never. Good. Because she's tired. She carries me a lot. Kaelen looked at the small, fragile boy. The runt. The heir. Tears, hot and unfamiliar, pricked his eyes. He took the washcloth from Leo's hand. Let me help. Leo didn't pull away. Kaelen washed his son's back, tracing the scar with the gentle touch of a man who realized he had almost lost everything. He didn't just want to be his father. He wanted to be his shield. And God help anyone who tried to touch him again.
Lights flickered. Died. Darkness swallowed the lodge. Elara didn't panic. She was used to the dark. She lit the candle on the table with a match from her pocket. The flame danced, casting long, wavering shadows against the log walls. Generator failed, Kaelen said from the dark. They ate soup. Canned tomato heated over the fire. Tasted like metal and salt. To Elara, a feast. Leo slept on the rug by the hearth, belly full. Elara watched him breathe. In, out, the only rhythm that mattered. Why? The word broke the silence like a dropped glass. Elara looked up. Kaelen stared at her, face half in shadow. A fallen angel. Why what? Why did you run? 5 years ago. I came back from the war, and you were gone. No note, just an empty room. Elara's hand froze midair. Empty room? No note? I left a note, she said, voice tight. On your pillow. Kaelen shook his head slowly. There was no note. Don't lie to me. Anger flared, hot and sudden. You don't get to rewrite history because you feel guilty. I'm not lying. Then explain Soraya. Elara stood, chair scraping loudly against the floorboards. Explain why your advisor came to my room the night before you returned. Explain why she told me you had chosen a new mate, a royal mate. Kaelen went still. What? She said I was a whore. Elara spat. The words tasted like bile. She said I would taint the bloodline. She said if I was still there when you got back, you would kill me yourself. Trembling now. 5 years of pain pouring out like blood from a reopened wound. I didn't run because I stopped loving you, she whispered. A tear slipped down her cheek. I ran because I loved you too much to let you kill me. Kaelen stood, slowly. Horror washed over his face. Elara, I never sent her. I never chose another mate. I've been looking for you. Every single day. For 5 years. Liar. But her voice lacked heat. I swear it. On my wolf. On my crown. He reached out, taking her hand. Warm, rough, electric. She stole my letters, Kaelen realized, voice turning dark, deadly. She stole our life. Elara looked into his eyes. She wanted to see deception, but only pain stared back. It doesn't matter, she said, pulling away. The lie doesn't matter anymore. Why? Elara looked at Leo sleeping by the fire. Because we are different people now. You are a king. I am a rogue, and he is the proof that we were a mistake. Kaelen looked at her. Really looked at her. No, he said softly. He is the proof that we were real. The tension broke, but not in a good way. A noise from outside. Howl, not the wind. A pack call. Elara's eyes widened. They found us. Kaelen turned to the window, eyes glowing molten gold. Let them come.
The howling stopped. Worse. Silence meant they were circling, communicating. Kaelen paced the grand room, boots thudding against the hardwood like the countdown of a clock. Every muscle coiled tight, ready to snap. But the threat outside wasn't what made his blood boil. It was the woman standing by the window. Elara stared into the blackness, spine stiff. A soldier waiting for the volley. Not the soft, laughing girl he remembered from a lifetime ago. You said she came to your room. Kaelen's voice was low, dangerous. Elara didn't turn. The night before you returned, she had a seal, the royal crest. And you believed her? She had your ring, Kaelen? Elara spun around. Her eyes were wet, burning with green fire. The signet ring. She said you gave it to her as a promise. Kaelen stopped pacing. The heir left the room. His ring. He looked down at his hand. The heavy gold band sat there now. But 5 years ago. A flash of memory. He had taken it off to scrub rebellion blood from his hands. When he turned back to the basin, it was gone. He assumed a thief in the camp. I didn't give it to her. Kaelen whispered the words, horror settling like a cold stone in his gut. She stole it, just like she stole my letters. Elara blinked, confusion warring with the anger. Letters? Wrote you every week. Kaelen stepped closer, desperate to bridge the chasm. From the front lines, I sent gifts, a silk scarf, a music box that played that lullaby. Elara's face crumpled. I got a box of dead roses and a dagger. A severed bond. Because of that she ran, not cowardice, terror. Kaelen closed the distance. He could smell her fear, sharp and acrid, but beneath it, the faint, enduring scent of love, buried deep under ash. Soraya. The name was a curse on his tongue. She orchestrated everything, played us like pieces on a board. Why? She wanted the crown, and she knew the only way to get it was to make sure my heir was never born. The truth hung, Alfred, between them. Naked, ugly, irreversible. Elara looked up at him, the wall between them cracked. She didn't look at him like a king. She looked at him like the man she had lost. We lost 5 years, she whispered, voice trembling. We lost everything. No. Kaelen brushed her jaw with his fingers, feeling the pulse flutter beneath the skin. We lost time. We didn't lose everything. He looked at the sleeping boy on the velvet couch. We have him. A flicker of hope sparked in her eyes. Fragile, a candle in a hurricane. Then, the moment shattered. A scream pierced the air. Pure, unadulterated agony. Leo.
The scream tore through Elara's soul. She slid across the floor, crashing to her knees beside the rug. Leo thrashed, back arched, body rigid as a bowstring. "Leo, baby!" She tried to hold him. His skin burned against her palms, like touching a hot stove. "What is it?" Kaelen loomed over them, panic radiating off him. "Fever?" No. Elara saw muscles ripple under Leo's skin, something trying to punch its way out. "He's shifting." Kaelen froze. "He's 5. Too young. It's impossible." "Nothing about him is normal," Elara shouted. She grabbed Leo's hand. His fingers clawed the air, nails lengthening into talons, then receding. "It's the stress, the cold, being near you. His alpha father. It triggered it." Leo screamed again, a jagged yip, bones cracked, wet, sickening. "Make it stop," Elara pleaded, tears blurring her vision. "Do something. You're the king. Command him." Kaelen looked terrified, powerless. "Can't stop nature, Elara." "Try." Kaelen closed his eyes. Alpha power surged through the room, heavy and static. "Leo," Kaelen commanded, voice booming like thunder. "Calm." Leo convulsed. He shrieked, clutching his head. The alpha voice on his fragile mind was torture, not a cure. "Stop." Elara shoved Kaelen's chest with all her strength. "You're hurting him." "I don't know what to do," Kaelen roared, panic finally cracking his voice. "He's too weak. The wolf is too big. It will kill him." Elara looked at her son, eyes rolling back, foam at his mouth, dying. Her world narrowed. No king, no past, just a problem, and she was the only one who could fix it. "Get on the bed." Voice ice cold. Kaelen blinked. "What?" "Get on the bed. Lie down. Now." Kaelen obeyed. He moved to the massive velvet couch. Elara scooped up Leo. He was vibrating, bones grinding like mortar and pestle. "He needs an anchor," Elara said, moving fast. "Needs heat to soften the bones, and a heartbeat to sync with. Take off your shirt." Kaelen ripped his shirt off. Muscles rippled, tense as steel cords. Elara laid Leo on Kaelen's bare chest. Skin to skin. Hold him. Not tight. Just be there. Let him feel your wolf. Elara climbed onto the bed, lying on Leo's other side, pressing her body against his small back. She wrapped her arm across Leo, her hand meeting Kaelen's on the boy's chest. "Sing," Elara whispered. "I don't sing." "Sing, damn you." Kaelen hesitated. Then, low and deep, a rumble started in his chest, a hum, a purr. Elara joined in. The lullaby she had hummed in the dark for 5 years. "Sleep now, little wolf, the moon is high." Sandwiched between the alpha's raw power and the mother's fierce love, Leo's thrashing slowed. The heat radiating from Kaelen seeped into the boy, melting the tension. The bone-breaking sound stopped. The scream faded into a whimper. Slowly, the wolf retreated. Leo went limp. Elara buried her face in Leo's neck, sobbing with relief. Across their son, her eyes met Kaelen's. He wasn't looking at the boy. He was looking at her, with awe. Power shifted. He was the king of the wolves. But she was the queen of survival.
Fire died to embers. Room shadowed, intimate. Kaelen couldn't move. He didn't want to. Leo slept deeply. His small breath synced perfectly with Kaelen's own. The fever broke. But the woman on the other side. Elara was exhausted. Hair a mess of tangles. Face streaked with dirt. Smelling of sweat and fear. She was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. "You saved him," Kaelen whispered. Elara kept her eyes closed, hand resting on his chest. "We saved him." "No. I panicked. I tried force. You used instinct." He looked at his hand covering hers. Large, scarred, a weapon. Hers small, calloused, a tool. "I thought you were weak," he admitted. The confession tasted like ash on his tongue. "When I heard you ran, told myself you were too weak to be a queen." Elara opened her eyes. Green met gold. I was weak. But the world broke me, Kaelen, and I had to put myself back together with sharp edges. Kaelen interlaced his fingers with hers. Electricity jolted through him. Recognition. I liked the edges. The space between them burned. 5 years of anger evaporated. They were a family. Broken, messy, hunted, but a family. He leaned in. He needed to taste her, to seal this. Elara. She didn't pull away. Her gaze dropped to his lips. Kaelen. He closed the distance. Crash. Glass exploded. A canister smashed through the window, hissing across the floor like a viper. Smoke. Thick, green smoke. Wolfsbane, Kaelen roared. He rolled, shielding Leo and Elara with his own body as the room filled with choking fog. The hunters weren't just outside anymore. They were in.
The gas hissed like a nest of disturbed vipers. Green fog swallowed the room, carrying the acrid, metallic stench of wolfsbane. It hit Elara's lungs like ground glass, forcing a hacking cough that bent her double. She buried her face in her sleeve, eyes watering. But for Kaelen and Leo, it was liquid fire. Beside her, Kaelen roared, a sound of pure, unadulterated agony that scraped against the walls. He collapsed to his knees, clutching his chest, golden eyes rolling back as the toxin severed the connection to his wolf. Leo went limp, his small body convulsing silently on the velvet. "Kaelen!" Elara screamed. The haze swallowed the sound. Thud. Crack. Timber splintered near the door. Shadows moved in the fog. Mercenaries. The terror vanished. In its place, a cold, hard rage settled in her gut, heavy as a stone. She wasn't a queen today. She wasn't a mate. She was a cornered animal, and she knew exactly how to bite. "Stay down." She hissed the command to Kaelen. She grabbed the heavy cast-iron kettle from the hearth. Boiling water sloshed inside, searing the iron against her palm. A mercenary stepped through the green smoke, raising a tactical rifle. Elara didn't hesitate. She hurled the water into his face. The man screamed as scalding liquid melted skin. He fired blindly, bullets tearing into the ceiling, raining plaster down on them. Elara dove low, sliding under his swinging rifle. She slashed the steak knife across his Achilles tendon. He dropped like a stone. She rolled behind the kitchen island. 2 more shadows entered the breach. "Where's the king?" one barked, voice distorted by a gas mask. Elara grabbed a bottle of high-proof whiskey and a rag. Her hands moved with the muscle memory of the wilds. She wasn't waiting for a hero. She was the hero. She lit the rag with the dying embers of the hearth. Threw it. Whoosh. Alcohol ignited in the gas-filled air. A wall of fire erupted between her and the gunman, hungry and violent. "Back! Fall back!" Elara scrambled to Kaelen's side. He struggled to stand, veins turning black as the poison fought his system. "Kill them," Elara whispered, eyes wild, reflecting the flames. "We have to kill them all." Kaelen looked up at her. Through the pain, through the haze, his eyes widened. He didn't see a victim. He saw a warrior bathed in hellfire.
Kaelen's blood felt like sludge. The wolfsbane paralysis crept up his limbs, turning muscle to stone. Then, Elara. A blur of violence. Knife in hand, soot smudged across her cheek, standing over a groaning mercenary with the ferocity of a wildcat protecting her den. Something inside him snapped. Not the bone, the restraint. The sight of her, fierce, lethal, protecting him, burned through the poison faster than any antidote. With a roar that shook the floorboards, Kaelen forced his body to obey. The wolf rose up, fueled by a primal need to claim, to kill. He lunged. He caught the second mercenary by the throat. No magic, just brute force. He slammed the man against the stone fireplace. Crack. The masonry splintered. The man went limp. Silence fell, broken only by the crackle of spreading fire consuming the curtains. Kaelen turned to Elara. She breathed hard, chest heaving, blood splattered on her shirt like war paint. He grabbed her, He slammed her against the wall, hands tangling in her hair. Not gentle. Desperate. The adrenaline of near death crashing into the mate bond like a tidal wave. "You," he growled, forehead resting against hers, sharing the same frantic air. Magnificent. Not done. She panted, eyes searching his face for injuries. "Listen to me." Kaelen's voice dropped, a vow etched in stone. "I lost you once. I died for 5 years. I'll burn this mountain to ash before I let them take you again. Kaelen? My queen." He kissed her. Smoke and iron, a kiss of possession, a kiss that promised violence to the world and worship to her. Elara kissed him back, hands gripping his shirt, anchoring him to the earth. For a moment, the war didn't exist. Only the heat of their bodies against the freezing draft. The ceiling groaned above them. The roof! Elara pulled back, coughing. Fire licked the beams. The dry timber walls turned the lodge into an oven. "Go," Kaelen choked out. He grabbed the unconscious Leo from the couch, shielding the boy's face from the embers. "Back exit." They ran, leaving the burning fortress behind for the ice.
The transition from inferno to freezer was brutal. They burst out the back door. The wind hit like a physical blow, instantly freezing the sweat on Elara's skin, turning her hair to icicles. The blizzard was a white wall, the whiteout, visibility 0. "Keep moving," Kaelen yelled over the gale. He tucked Leo inside his coat, hunching his massive shoulders to break the wind. Elara stumbled through deep drifts. Her legs felt like lead. The adrenaline was fading, leaving only bone-deep exhaustion. They pushed toward the tree line, but the snow wasn't empty. Shadows emerged from the white void. First 2, then 5, then 10. Elara skidded to a halt. Kaelen bumped into her back. Surrounded. Not a hunting party. A platoon. 20 wolves fully shifted, fur matted with ice. Eyes glowing with unholy hunger. In the center, standing on a rock, the mercenary captain watched. He smiled, teeth filed into razor points. "End of the line, Your Majesty." The voice carried over the storm, mocking and cold. Kaelen stepped in front of Elara, a low rumble vibrating in his chest, shaking the snow from the nearest branches. "Run," Kaelen whispered. "When I move, make for the ravine." "No, too many. You'll die." "I am the king." Kaelen looked back. Gold eyes soft, sad, and full of love. And a king protects his family. Kaelen dropped Leo into the snow at her feet. "Go!" He didn't wait. He threw his head back, let out a roar that shattered the night, and charged the 20 wolves alone. The captain raised his rifle, aiming not at Kaelen, but at Elara. She grabbed Leo, scrambled back. The ravine yawned behind her like a hungry mouth. She was trapped between the slaughter and the fall.
Pain wasn't just a sensation. It was the only world that existed. Kaelen stood alone in the churning snow. The pack circled, a carousel of teeth, shadow, and steam. Blood hissed where it hit the ice. 3 impacts to the chest. Kevlar stopped the penetration, but the force cracked his ribs like dry twigs. Every breath was a shard of glass in his lungs. "Run, Elara." "Yield," the captain screamed over the wind. "Yield, and I'll make it quick." Kaelen laughed, a wet gurgling sound that bubbled up his throat. "Kings don't yield." 3 wolves lunged. Kaelen didn't shift. He was too weak, the wolf's bane still singing in his veins. He fought like a man possessed. He caught the first wolf in midair. Snap, neck broken. He spun, kicking the second beast in the jaw with a sickening crunch. But the numbers were a tide he couldn't hold back. Teeth sank into his calf, tearing down to the bone. Another set of jaws clamped onto his shoulder, shredding muscle. He went down. Weight crushed him into the frozen earth. But his eyes didn't close. They locked on the tree line where Elara had vanished into the white. By her time. He drew the last of his power, pulled it from the marrow, from the soul. "Run!" The alpha voice. A shock wave. The blast of sound flattened the snow for 50 yards. The wolves on top of him were thrown back, stunned by the royal frequency vibrating their skulls. Darkness clawed at the edges of his vision. Crunching boots approached, heavy, deliberate. "Pity," the captain sneered, aiming the barrel of his rifle between Kaelen's eyes. "The queen wanted you alive, but she'll settle for a corpse." Kaelen closed his eyes. "Live, Elara. Keep our son alive." The rifle butt slammed into his temple. Blackness took him.
She didn't stop until her legs refused to take another step. Elara collapsed into the rot of a hollow oak. The silence here wasn't empty. It was heavy. It was the sound of a grave. She slid down the bark, pulling Leo tight against her chest. "Mommy?" Leo whispered. His teeth chattered violently. "Where's Kaelen?" Elara opened her mouth. No sound came out. Her throat had closed with terror. She heard the roar, the alpha command that shook the trees. Then, nothing. He's dead. The thought punched a hole through her sternum. After 5 years, she found him. She touched him, and then she lost him. Is he coming? Leo tugged her sleeve. Elara looked down. Mismatched eyes, blue and gold, looked back, wide and trusting. He looked so much like him, it hurt to breathe. Tears spilled down her frozen cheeks, hot and fast. I don't know." The wind shifted. The smell of smoke reached them. Cedar and ruin. The lodge was burning. The smell of everything she had momentarily found turned to ash. She closed her eyes, letting her head rest against the rotting wood. Alone. Again. King dead. Enemy hunting. Just a rogue with a knife and a child against an army. "I'm sorry," she whispered into his hair. "I am so sorry. Stop crying." The voice was small, but it cut through the cold like a blade. Elara blinked. Leo wasn't crying. He sat up, body tense, head cocked to the side. "Leo?" "He isn't dead," Leo said. His voice was strange, detached. "I can hear him." Elara's heart skipped a beat. "What?" "The bad man is talking," Leo whispered, pointing his ear toward the wind, tracking a sound she couldn't catch. "He says, tie him to the sled. Drag him." Elara froze. Tie him. Drag him. Alive. In a single heartbeat, the world tilted on its axis. Grief vanished. Despair evaporated. Something cold, sharp, and violent snapped into place in her chest. She wasn't a widow mourning a husband. She was a mate whose wolf was being taken. Elara wiped her face with a rough sleeve. Tears gone, eyes narrowed into dangerous slits. "Stay here," she told Leo. Voice steel. "Mommy." "Stay." She crawled out of the hollow. The blizzard raged around her, but she didn't feel the cold anymore. She felt the fire. They thought they had won. They thought the king was down, and the rogue mother would flee into the dark like a scared rabbit. Wrong. She looked at the landscape. Deep snow, sharp branches, jagged ice. To a royal guard, this was hell. To a rogue who had survived the borderlands for 5 years, this was an arsenal. She moved. She snapped a low-hanging branch. Sharpened the end with her knife until it was a spear. Gathered heavy stones, loosened the packed snow on the ridge above the trail. She wasn't going to run. She was going to hunt. She slipped into the shadows, circling back toward the scent of blood. The prey had just become the butcher.
Drag. Scrape. Thud. The world was gray ice and the punishing rhythm of black boots. Kaelen was hauled through the drifts like a sack of grain, his wrists bound with silver-laced chains that burned his skin like acid. His legs were numb. The cold warred with the wolfsbane pulsing in his veins, turning his blood to liquid lead. Dump him here. Kaelen hit the hard-packed snow face first. He tasted dirt, iron, and failure. He forced his head up. A small clearing sat near the ravine's edge. The wind howled up from the abyss, carrying the scent of pine and impending death. Look at him. The captain sneered, looming over him. The great Alpha. You look more like a stray dog begging for scraps. Kaelen saved his breath. He needed it for one last lunge, one last attempt to rip a throat out. Soraya is watching. The captain tapped his earpiece. She wants to see the light go out. He raised his pistol, a black eye staring Kaelen down. Kaelen closed his eyes. He didn't pray. He didn't beg. He thought of Elara. I love you. Goodbye, Your Majesty. The finger tightened on the trigger. Thwack. A wet, meaty sound, wood-piercing flesh. The captain gasped. He looked down, confusion clouding his face. A wooden spear point stuck out of his chest, dripping red onto the white snow. Silence. He collapsed. Ambush! Someone screamed. Contact left! Kaelen's eyes snapped open. Perched on a snow-covered branch, silhouetted against the broken moon, was a figure. She held a second spear, her hair whipping around her face like a halo of war. Elara. She hadn't run. She circled back. Get away from him. It wasn't a plea. It was a command that rivaled any alpha. She dropped from the tree, landing in a crouch between Kaelen and the pack. Not a rogue. A Valkyrie. Pride, hot, fierce, and undeniable, ignited Kaelen's blood, burning away the poison. She came back.
Fear was gone. There was only the rhythm of the kill. Elara didn't fight like a royal. No trading blows, no honor. She fought like a ghost. A wolf lunged. She slid underneath, slashing the soft belly. He howled and fell, staining the snow crimson. Get her! 3 wolves charged at once. Elara spun, kicking a spray of heavy snow into the eyes of the center wolf. He blinded, stumbled, exposing his neck. Fast. Vicious. A whirlwind of dirty tricks learned in the dark. But there were too many. A heavy paw swiped her side, knocking the breath from her lungs. She crashed into a tree, stars exploding in her vision. Her knife flew into a drift. No. She scrambled, clawing at the bark. A massive gray wolf loomed over her, jaws snapping, saliva dripping on her face. A blur of motion slammed into the beast. Kaelen. He had broken the chains. His wrists were raw, bleeding freely, but he lifted the gray wolf over his head with a roar and threw him into the ravine. Kaelen. He turned, battered, bloody, terrifying. Get behind me. No. Elara grabbed her knife from the snow. She stepped up beside him, shoulder to shoulder. Beside you. Kaelen grinned. His bloody lips split wide. Beside me. It was a dance of violence. Kaelen was the hammer. Elara was the scalpel. He pinned. She struck. They decimated the pack. The pristine snow churned into bloody slush. Minutes later, silence fell. Elara dropped to her knees, adrenaline crashing, hands shaking uncontrollably. Kaelen fell beside her. He pulled her into his chest, burying his face in her neck. You came back, he whispered against her frozen skin. Why? Because, Elara sobbed, gripping his torn shirt. I'm done running. They held each other, 2 broken pieces fused by fire and blood. Clap, clap, clap. A slow, mocking sound cut through the victory like a knife.
Kaelen spun, shoving Elara behind him. Emerging from the tree line, a single elite guard. In his arms, a small, struggling boy. Leo! Elara screamed. Careful! The guard pressed a silver dagger to Leo's throat. One step, the air bleeds. Leo wasn't crying. His face was pale, eyes wide. But he was staring at Kaelen, trusting. From the guard's vest, a voice crackled over the radio. Soraya. Well done, Kaelen. You killed my pack, but you forgot the first rule of chess. Protect the king. Kaelen's fists clenched until his knuckles cracked. Let him go, Soraya, or I hunt you to the ends of the earth. I don't think so. Here's the deal. Abdicate. Sign the papers declaring yourself a traitor. Then, maybe, the boy lives as a servant. No, Elara cried, grabbing Kaelen's arm. The knife pressed closer, A single bead of red blood welled on Leo's neck. Kaelen's world narrowed to that drop. Crown or son? Tick-tock, Your Majesty. Kaelen looked at Leo, the fragile boy who survived starvation. The runt. And suddenly, Kaelen saw it. Leo wasn't looking at the knife. He was looking at the guard's exposed hand, his lips pulled back in a silent snarl. Not a victim, a thorn. Kaelen gave a microscopic nod. Leo opened his mouth. He bit down, hard, on the guard's wrist. Ah! The guard flinched. The knife slipped. Now, Kaelen roared. He slammed his fists into the ground. He channeled every ounce of alpha power into the earth, a physical shockwave that vibrated the bedrock. Crack! The unstable snow shelf above them gave way with a groan that shook the mountain. Kaelen, get down! He grabbed Elara, pulling her into the shelter of a rock overhang. The mountain came down. The white wave crashed over them, burying the guard, the clearing, and the world in suffocating silence. Darkness took them.
Silence. It wasn't empty. It was a physical weight pressing against her eardrums like the bottom of the ocean. Elara opened her eyes. Darkness. Absolute suffocating darkness. Dead? Then, a rhythm against her back. Thump, thump, thump. A heartbeat. Strong, steady, Kaelen. She was curled in a tight ball, tucked beneath the arch of his body. He was bracing the mountain of snow with his broad shoulders, creating a tiny, fragile pocket of air. Leo? Her whisper sounded loud in the confined space. The air was thin, tasting of ice. Here, Mommy. A small hand grabbed her frozen finger. Panic receded, leaving her lightheaded. Alive. Kaelen? Holding. He grunted, the strain vibrating through his chest into hers. Air won't last. Dig. Elara nodded. She shifted, her elbows scraping against the ice walls. Up! Push up! She clawed at the ceiling of their tomb. Her fingers burned. The snow was packed like concrete, unforgiving and heavy. She didn't stop. She imagined the sun. She imagined the heat. She dug until her nails bled. Turning the white snow pink, her hand broke through. Light, blinding gray light, poured in like water. A rush of cold, fresh air hit her face, stinging her lungs. I see the sky, Kaelen roared, a burst of final strength shoving the snow crust upward. They scrambled out, gasping, tumbling onto the surface of the new world. The landscape had changed. The forest was gone. The ravine was filled. It was a wasteland of churning white. The guard? Elara wiped snow from her lashes. Gone. Buried. Movement caught her eye. Down the slope, twisted metal smoked against the white. A helicopter. Soraya's extraction transport, swatted out of the sky by the mountain itself. Look. A figure crawled from the wreckage, a white coat stained with oil and fresh blood. Soraya.
Kaelen stood tall. He was bleeding from a dozen cuts. His shirt hung in tatters. His body screamed for rest. He had never felt more like a king. Soraya stumbled toward them. She dragged her left leg through the drifts. Her hair was matted with grease. She held a pistol, her hand shaking so hard the barrel danced. You! She screamed, shrill, hysterical. You ruined everything. I was supposed to be queen. Kaelen looked at her and felt nothing. She wasn't a threat. She was small, petty, a mosquito buzzing against a hurricane. It's over, Soraya. No. If I can't have the crown, no one will. She raised the gun. Kaelen didn't flinch. He didn't shift. He simply stepped aside. I fight warriors. I fight wolves. I don't fight trash. He looked at Elara. She is yours. Elara stepped forward, no weapon in her hand, small against the backdrop of the ruined mountains. But her eyes were ancient. Soraya laughed, a wet, bubbly sound. You? A rogue? A nobody? Elara didn't shout. She walked, straight toward the gun. Drop it. Her voice wasn't loud. but the tone, absolute, unquestionable. The alpha voice, without magic, without a wolf, just the sheer, terrifying weight of a mother who had survived hell. Soraya froze. Elara's confidence triggered a primal instinct in the other woman, the urge to submit to the superior predator. "I said," Elara whispered, standing inches from the barrel. "Sit." Soraya's eyes went wide. Her lip quivered. Stripped of pride, stripped of rank, stripped of the lie. With a broken sob, Soraya dropped the gun. She fell to her knees in the snow, crushed by the weight of Elara's will. Kaelen smiled. She didn't need a crown. She was born to rule. In the distance, the heavy thump, thump, thump of Royal Army choppers cut through the air. The cavalry. Too late to save the king. His queen had already done it.
The air smelled of lilacs and wet earth. Elara stood on the balcony, the stone warm under her bare feet. The snow was gone. In its place, endless green valleys stretched to the horizon. She wore emerald silk. It felt strange, too light, too smooth against skin that was used to wool and denim. But she was getting used to the softness. "Mom, look!" Below, Leo ran in the garden. His cheeks were round and pink, finally filled out. He was chasing a butterfly, shrieking with joy. Chasing him! A massive black wolf. Kaelen. The wolf tackled the boy gently, rolling him into the clover. Leo shrieked with giggles, his hands buried in the thick fur. Okay, you got me." Kaelen shifted. Mist swirled, and then he sat back on the grass, naked from the waist up, laughing. He looked up at the balcony. His eyes found hers. The connection hit like a physical touch. Heat, promise, possessiveness. Elara leaned against the stone railing. The ice that had encased her heart for 5 years melted. Minutes later, Kaelen walked up the terrace stairs. His arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her back against his solid chest. He smelled of sun, grass, and home. "He's fast," Kaelen murmured against her hair. "Going to be a handful." "Takes after his father," Elara teased, leaning back into him. "And his stubbornness? Where does he get that?" "That is all me." Kaelen turned her around. His face grew serious. He traced the line of her jaw with his thumb. "Are you happy?" The question was simple, terrifying. Elara looked at the man who had been her enemy, her nightmare and her savior. She looked down at the boy playing in the safety of the garden. "I'm not running anymore." "That's not an answer." Elara smiled. She stood on her tiptoes, kissed him, slow, sweet, a promise of 1,000 tomorrows. "Yes," she whispered against his lips. "I am happy." "Good." Kaelen scooped her up into his arms effortlessly. "Kaelen, put me down. The court is watching." "Let them watch," the king said, carrying her toward the bedroom, kicking the door open. "Let them see the alpha finally caught his mate." Elara laughed, looping her arms around his neck. "Only because I let you." Kaelen kicked the door shut. "I know.